My name is Christina. I'm the grants coordinator here at Culture Moves Europe, and my colleagues Lolly and Alex are in the chat supporting me. I will give you this short presentation about the individual mobility, and afterwards you can ask your questions. The chat will be enabled, and you can also raise your digital hand. Please remember that all contents and answers in this presentation are indicative. And in case of doubt or discrepancies, please always refer to the call, and we'll have time for your question afterwards. So, what will we talk about today? First, the points of contact, how you can reach us, an overview of the grant process, what is the grant agreement, the implementation and timeline of the mobility project, then changes to the mobility project, the activity report, communication of the mobility project, and useful links, key documents, and other contact points. So, how to contact the Culture Moves Europe team? This is very important. All communication and exchanges and administrative requirements must be made via your personal account on the Goethe application portal, so the same that you've applied with. Via GAP, you will be sending back the signed grant agreement. You will have all communications with us there about your project, or if you need to make any changes. And also there you will submit your activity report and supporting documents after your project implementation. And in case of technical issues, if something is not working on GAP, it can happen sometimes, then just please write us an email at culturemoveseurope@goethe.de. So what are the next steps? You have received, hopefully all of you, the message that you are a grantee of Culture Moves Europe. So now the next step would be to submit your bank details. This must be only your personal bank account or your group leader's individual bank account. Only those are accepted. The bank must be based in a Creative Europe country. Intermediary banks are not allowed. If there's any questions, please write us a GAP message. And yeah, you have a form on the GAP portal to submit your bank details there. Then, second, the preparation of the grant agreement. Once we receive your bank details, we prepare the grant agreement for all selected applicants. Please keep in mind that priority is given to applicants starting their project earlier. So, earliest travelers will receive their grant agreement on time before other people that travel a bit later. Then the signature of the grant agreement. You have 15 days to sign and send back the grant agreement digitally via GAP. For group applications, that also means that your group members must sign a power of attorney as well, but this is all part of the grant agreement, so no need to organize this yourself. Then fourth part would be the payment of the first installment. Once we receive your signed grant agreement, we process the payment, and then it takes a few working days until you receive it. The accessibility support. If you have requested accessibility support in your application, our accessibility team will, or maybe it has already, contact you soon. We will ask for supporting documents, and we accept any of the following, so a disability ID, an official statement, a certificate or letter from a government authority, and a medical certificate or report. If you need a personal assistant or a sign language interpreter, it must be mentioned in your supporting documents as well. It can be a separate document for that. And in case, we will ask also for a formal quote for showing the total cost of service, or a short consent form from a non-professional support. So if a family member or friend is accompanying you. Then let's talk about the grant agreement. What is the grant agreement? It's the legally binding contract between the Goethe Institute and you, the selected applicants. Among other things, it includes the following: data from the Goethe Institute and each grantee, the application project, the call, the project dates, the budget, and the grantee's obligations, and requirements for submitting an amendment. Information on causes for grant reductions and partial or full repayments are also included there, and clarification on intellectual property rights and copyrights. And for group projects, it will also include details of the group leader and the power of attorney for all group members. Let's talk about the timeline of a mobility project. After signing the grant agreement, you'll have up to 6 months to start your travel. So you must depart from your place of residence after signing the grant agreement. Then implement your project in the destination country for the agreed duration. You cannot interrupt the project and restart it later, so it must be in one go. And then afterwards you submit the activity report within 30 days after you finish your project. If your travel includes stopovers, you must be able to show the complete proof of travel from your place of legal residence to the destination. So please keep all your travel tickets if you plan to do other projects before or travel somewhere else before. It's really important that then you can show us the full travel to your destination. Changes to the mobility project. We know that sometimes changes can happen, so changes are limited and subject to conditions and must be discussed in advance and approved by the Culture Museum team. So there is the possibility to change the duration. Shorter projects will lead to reduction of a daily allowance. Then changes to group members. You can have a dropout of a group member, but you must inform us immediately and only one replacement is allowed. Then changes to the 6-month validity. Only for visa delays beyond your control. So if you require a visa and there's a delay there, we could change this 6 months window for you. Then changes to the destination. This only applies for unforeseen reasons if it's the only way to carry out the project. Then changes to the international partner. It's only accepted if you submit a proof of a serious issue with your international partner or of a cancellation on their part, and then you can find a new international partner. All changes above may lead to a budget reduction or an adaptation. So failing to inform the Culture Museum team may lead to a full reimbursement. I will stress this again. If you need to make any of these changes, if something is happening, you first reach out to us via a gap message and then we can advise you on what to do and we can find a solution. Then unforeseen circumstances are situations beyond your control which prevent you from carrying out your project. They include national restrictions on movement like health crisis, war, major unrest, natural disaster. The inability to travel, like a pregnancy, death, or major illness of yourself, a family member, assistant, or interpreter, and of course, strikes. If you face an unforeseen circumstances here as well, please inform us immediately. If we agree you're facing an unforeseen circumstance, contractual obligations will be suspended, and we will do our best to offer an amendment to implement the project as close to the original plan as possible. And if an amendment is not possible, the project will be considered a dropout and reimbursement will be asked if applicable. Let's talk about the grant payment. So it is made in 2 installments. As I said, once you send back your grant agreement, we process the first payment within 30 days after receiving it. The first installment is 75% of the daily plus the travel allowance. And if you have applied for accessibility support, you also will receive 75% of the accessibility support in that first payment. Then the final payment you will receive within 30 days. We will process it 30 days after reviewing your activity report. So there you will receive 25% of the daily plus the travel allowance, and if applicable as well, For the accessibility support, you will receive the 25%, and then all top-ups that you've applied for, they will be paid out with the second installment after checking the proofs. So yeah, at the end of the mobility project, you need to fill in the activity report. You must fill in a short questionnaire presenting the results of your project, so development, achievement, personal learnings, outcomes, and to send us some proofs of your travel and mobility. When do you have to do that? It's within a maximum of 30 days after you have completed the project. And here on the right side of the slide, you can see what it will look like in GAP. You will see this reports section, and there you will see the final report, and you can see that it's requested. So if you click on that, you will be able to open it and then make your changes, upload your proofs, and finally, when you're ready to submit it. And who has to do that? The applicant, so you, and in case of a group leader, it must be the group leader, and you have to submit the proofs for all of your group members as well. Then the activity report proofs to submit. What is it exactly? So we have the proof of transportation for your journey from your place of residence to the destination. And then a signed letter from the international partner confirming the project was implemented as planned. Then also the proof of top-ups and accessibility support if applicable. And 5 files proving and illustrating the implementation of your project, so some photos, maybe a PDF of a program or a video that you made during your mobility. And how do you do that? Online, on the grantee's account, on GAP, we ask you to please name each document the following way. So your surname, your first name, and then the type of proof. It is easier especially for group applications, for us to identify who is this proof talking about and what are we seeing here. For virtual projects, the proofs look a bit different. So to prove the virtual project implementation, we would need proofs like timeline, email exchanges, online meetings, screenshots, programs, pictures. You can also upload that via GAP. Then the activity report proofs of top-ups. For the proof of green mobility top-up, we need the travel tickets or receipts proving you traveled green for the entire journey from your residence to the destination. The proof of overseas countries and territories or outermost region top-up. We also need the travel tickets or receipts showing that you travel from or to an OCT or OR country. Then the proof of family top-up. It's an official document proving your custody of children under 18 during your mobility project. We need 1 document per child. And then the proof of visa top-up. Any document proving you applied for and received the visa, like a proof of payment, a stamped visa, etc. Then the proofs of accessibility support. You won't need to prove how you spent your accessibility support per diem. However, if you received support for a personal assistant or a sign language interpreter, you must upload the following documents. For professional service, we need the invoice with the total cost of the service, and you will receive the amount shown on the invoice up to the agreed amount. And for a non-professional support, a self-declaration confirming their support during your mobility project. Then let's talk about communication and the grantee's obligations. If you use pictures in your activity report or post them on social media, please respect the privacy rights of everyone. Anyone recognizable in photos must have given their explicit consent for the use of their image, and in case of children, their parents must give this consent as well. On social media, you can of course tag us under Culture Moves Europe, and you can also use our hashtags Culture Moves Europe, Push Boundaries, and Creative Europe. We may reshare your content and tag you. And how to use the logo and the disclaimer. So you download them when you receive your grant agreement. and you can use them in posters, programs, publications, and institutional social media posts. For example, in a poster of your final exhibition, or if your international partner makes a social media post about the collaboration. You don't need to add them to your stories or to every post, so no worry. Then the Communication, Goethe-Institut, European Commission, and the Creative Europe Desk's obligations. Visual materials shared in the activity report. So we will ask for your consent in the activity report. If you agree, we may contact you for a formal agreement to use your pictures and videos. We will always use the credit and name of grantees and or people with the rights of the visual material. And of course, we might also ask you to share some testimonies. We will ask for your consent in the activity report as well. Your written testimonies might be reused to promote the project on social media and events, etc. And some grantees might also be contacted to be part of events. For more information, you know this by now, to check out Culture Moves Europe, our channels. You can find the link tree here, announcements, tutorial videos, and interviews. Then on our website, you find the call and all important information about the individual mobility. And then you can, of course, also contact your Creative Europe desk in your country.